Before I Wake is a 2018, yes, 2018 horror film, despite what the internet will tell you, directed by Mike Flanagan. He also wrote the movie with Jeff Howard, and he edited the movie as well, which at this point, I think he probably just edits all of his stuff. I don't know if that's true. We'll see if it continues, but so far, he's edited everything, which I never knew. So before we even jump into the movie itself, or whether we liked it or any of those things, we got to talk about behind the scenes with this movie, because I found this very fascinating, in some ways more interesting than the movie itself. So Before I Wake was filmed in 2013, right after he filmed Oculus, which was his first wide-release film. And this film did not hit Netflix until the first week of 2018. So that is just like, I know movies can sometimes take a while to come out, but that is a really long time. No reshoots, no problems with the movie. And this is basically what happened. So he filmed the movie, and it was purchased by Relativity Media to distribute in theaters. And then that company went bankrupt in 2015. So they had originally scheduled the movie to come out April of 2016, which, fun fact, it actually was originally scheduled to come out the day that Hush ended up coming out on Netflix. But the studio went bankrupt and were legally not allowed to release anything. So they did come out of bankruptcy, but still just like, I don't know whatever happened to Relativity Media, if they're still around, but his movie was kind of just trapped, basically, after making it. And Mike Flanagan actually ended up encouraging his fans to go buy the physical copy because it released internationally in Canada and other territories. It was just a U.S. distribution that it couldn't release. So he was like, by the time, this movie was rolling around, it was almost 2018. He's like, hey guys, I don't know what's going on with this movie I made. Like, just go buy it, from Canada, Eventually, though, Netflix did end up buying the movie and dumped it onto Netflix first week of the year in 2018 with no marketing, and no one ever talked about it. And I saw an interview with Mike Flanagan actually 2 years before the movie came out when he was doing promotion for Hush.
One of the things that is really frustrating about the situation for me is that when a movie's pushed back, especially multiple times, and this is 3 times we've been pushed, it can create this sense that there's something wrong with the picture, that they're either like struggling with it creatively, or that the movie was just not good enough for release and the studio's kind of scrambling to find something to do with it. And in our case, I love talking about it because it helps kind of dispel that perception, if it is there, because luckily the studio's bankruptcy and financial issues have been very public. But the movie hasn't changed a frame since it was supposed to be released a year and a half ago. It's simply because of the financial issues with the studio that it just keeps getting kicked down the road. And so I always am grateful for a chance to be able to kind of say that on the record, because you can only push a movie so many years before an audience starts to be like, something's wrong with it.
And that's why it came out in 2018, but Jacob Tremblay is still like 8 years old in the movie.
I was about to say, he does look pretty young in the movie, because didn't Room come out at the same time?
Room came out in 2015, and he's older looking in Room than in this. So this is just one of those classic, unfortunate stories of how Hollywood works and how it can kind of, unfortunately, damage the reputation of a movie. With that being said, I don't think this is Mike Flanagan's best movie.
No.
I did enjoy parts of it, but I'm very conflicted on it, so I'm interested to hear what you thought of it.
There's parts I like and parts I don't. It's weird. He has some regular Flanagan type stuff I like the eye contact into the camera for good creepy stuff like that. Good creepy imagery. I think Thomas Jane is one of the best actors that's not a big, main dude right now. I think he's fantastic. Kate Bosworth, that's her name, right? Who's the female lead. She was in Superman Returns, Lois Lane. And Jacob Paul Tremblay, who plays every little kid ever.
In the 2010s, yeah.
In the 2010s.
Until he hit puberty.
If you've ever seen a little kid in the movie, he's probably played him.
And wasn't Thomas Jane also in The Mist?
Yes, he was in The Mist. Fuck yeah.
As soon as I saw him in here, I was like, oh, Alex will recognize him.
Yeah. We also have some Flanagan regulars. Annabeth Gish, who was the maid in Haunting of Hill House, and Courtney Bell, Absentia. I'm such a mixed bag on this movie. There's a lot of stuff I like and a lot of stuff I'm just like, you know what I mean? I know Flanagan didn't want this advertised as a horror film because he said it feels like it's more like a fable. And yeah, this movie reminds me a lot more of Bridge to Terabithia than any horror film. It's more like fantasy and ooh. Yeah. Rather than, there's a lot of horror elements in it, but
it's a movie that if I was a kid, I could understand being really scared by, but as an adult, I'm like, oh, while those things could be scary, it doesn't personally scare me. Um, but I do want to commend a few things about the movie because I feel like sometimes I've gotten so spoiled by Mike Flanagan that I just have started to take him for granted. The scares in this movie are still top notch, like no false jump scares. There's a sequence where when they're first seeing the butterflies appear in their room before they really know what's going on, and then all of a sudden it just cuts, and then behind the mom you just see the canker man standing in the doorway.
Yeah.
No loud noise, no like scream,
Just standing there.
and then she just walks away, and as she passes it, it disappears. And I remember thinking while watching the movie, I'm like, wow, that was so good. I'm like, if that was any other director, I'd be like freaking out about how awesome that was. But because it's Mike Flanagan, I'm like, oh yeah, like that's what I expect, you know?
Good job. Yeah.
Yeah. So I don't want to like take those things for granted because there's a lot of that in this that's really good. But just compared to his other works is when it's like, yeah, it kind of falls short for me.
I think it's a very good human story with a ridiculous element, and about how people deal with things growing up, fear,
And overcoming the fear,
overcoming fear, growing up, and it's like
and overcoming trauma, like
overcoming overcoming
with her
trauma.
son,
Yeah, it's
Cody.
like it mainly excels in the performances. I feel like mainly Thomas Jane and Kate Bosworth. Jacob's okay. I don't think he's hit his. I think he hit his stride in Room, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
My favorite child performance of all time is him in Room. I think he's like, I don't even understand how he did that good of a performance in Room to where like he made me cry by himself in that movie. So I've always had respect, for any child performance that's that good. But yeah, in this movie, I was just like, yeah, it's whatever. It wasn't like terrible. It wasn't, boxy.
Oh God, yeah, God no, yeah. I mean, you know what to say. Child actors are either the best actors in the world or the worst.
Yeah.
There's no in between. But I felt like he wasn't that. He was like just starting to figure it out. Like he was okay.
I do have a lot of problems with it though that I feel like I can't really talk about without getting into spoilers. But I will just say overall, I wouldn't recommend this movie. This is my first time saying it. I did enjoy some things about it, but there's not enough here for me to be like, yeah, you should go check this out. It's on Netflix. If you want to watch it, it's a Flanagan movie. It has good Flanagan things in it. It just didn't come together for me, and I'll talk more about it in spoilers.
You're just gonna lose 97 minutes of your life. That's it. I mean, I think there's good stuff in here. There are good little tidbits of stuff, good performances. Story's kind of supernatural elements a bit weird. I mean, once you finally see everything in clear light, it's not as scary. It's like, oh, that's kind of dumb. But, yeah, I'd check it out. Yeah.
The whole idea of this premise ended up to me being cooler than the execution or like what the movie actually ends up being.
Mm-hmm.
The idea of a child who can dream things that come to life while he's sleeping, but that also means his nightmares will also come to life and there's consequences of that is a really cool premise. The way it's executed, though, is kind of like, I don't want to say unrealistic because of course it's unrealistic, but it's kind of like almost unbelievable. Like what was going on while he was in the orphanage between parents? So like, you know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
you'd think he'd have like more dreams and nightmares than just like the two that we see in the movie. You know what I mean? Like he dreams about butterflies a lot, and then he has this one nightmare canker man. It's like, what about some weird stuff?
Yeah.
Throw in some random stuff.
Yeah, and the way like the parents are like accepting of it is a bit ridiculous.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those like, here, look, are you gonna buy the premise or not? It's like it doesn't like take time to really establish it being realistic in the world that it's in. You just have to accept it. I did like though that they had that dream element where it's not just nightmares, because it would have been so annoying if it was like, oh, the kid had a nightmare and it came to life, and the parents are like, oh no, it's not a ghost, like you're just seeing things. It's like, I don't want to see this play out for an hour. It's like, just get to the point where you understand.
Yeah, it was right away.
Yeah, because the nightmare element isn't what's first introduced. Like, that's what I expected. Just start off, boom, kid has nightmares, they come to life. But no, it starts off good. Like, it starts off with the dreams, the butterflies, the kid, to where by the time that nightmare element is even introduced, the parents are already fully bought in. So there doesn't have to be this, like, believability element of, like, this can't be real, ghosts aren't real. It's like, they already know what's going on. Yeah. So I appreciated that. The reveal that the canker man is cancer, and that it's the child's memory of his mom, because the last time he sees her is that she's dying of cancer. And then this relates to the monster. One, I never even put that together. It is something I didn't see coming.
When I saw it the first time, it hit me pretty hard. I'm like, oh, but I've obviously seen it before, so it didn't hit me as well this time. But remember the first time I saw it, I'm like, oh.
So when did you watch it? When it came out?
Yeah, probably 2018, yeah.
Yeah, I missed this too when it came out, so this was my first time watching it. But I did not put that together, and I thought it was a good reveal. And the idea of, it makes sense, of a kid is going to do that and invent it in his nightmares. You know, instead of it just being like, oh, it's a demon, like Conjuring, it's a demon. I mean, I love Conjuring, but I just mean like it's not just like a ripoff of Insidious Conjuring. It's its own story of like he took cancer and he doesn't know how to spell as a kid, so it's Canker Man.
Canker. Not quite.
Also, the coolest part of the movie was the backstory of the guy who went crazy.
God.
His wife. That was the coolest part of the movie.
Isn't that terrifying? Where he's like
Yeah.
hugging the apparition and the face is all messed up. It's
Yeah.
like, oh.
And his delivery when he's like, he was too young to even remember what she looked like. I'm like, that's so fascinating. Like, that's such an interesting idea. But instead, we're focusing on this other couple.
Yeah, and I hated him for it. I like the other couple. So I want to talk about the opening of the movie, which I really like. You know, picture on the kid's not around. Dad's drilling, handlebars to the bathroom. I think Flanagan should have trusted us more. It's like, okay, the kid died drowning. But look, it's like, that's all we needed. But instead we get this like minor flashback of seeing the kid drown. Like, we didn't need that. We could have, also earlier, they were at an adoption agency. Like, we could have figured that out that the kid died. Like, we didn't need that. Just give us a little bit, you know.
I mean, there's so much in the movie that you could put it together. Yeah,
you didn't need to see the kid.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And then later on, you can say he drowned. But also, when Cody shows up and starts dreaming, like everything, I think the colors become much more vibrant. Like right away, it's like, oh, that's cool. And another little detail, when he's dreaming, the butterflies don't have antennae. And then when he's talking to the kid in class, it's like, oh, don't butterflies have antennae? And then like when he dreams later that night, the butterflies have antennae. Like, that's cool.
Yeah.
Little shit like that.
It was really true to like how things are as a kid and like your memories as a kid and how they're not good and that playing into the dreams. I was surprised how like that little detail was so good. And then also, but that's not even really the real opening of the movie. The real opening of the movie is the former dad coming in to try to kill Jacob Tremblay.
That's right.
And I was immediately bought in. I was like, oh my God, like whatever's going on is crazy if he's about to kill this kid. I thought that was a great hook.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. The original title was Somnia. It would have made the third film to have a Latin title, but they tease it at the end where it's like, oh, once you master your powers, who knows what could happen? Because like a 6-year-old kid or 7-year-old kid just gets killed by this thing.
The bully?
Yeah, the bully. The dude's wife.
I mean, he has presumably killed countless adults throughout everyone that's adopted him.
Yeah, it's like, that's so scary. It's like, can they come back?
But at the end, though, when she's like, anything can happen, she's like, the guy's wife came back, the kid came back, and then she's like, my husband's with our dead kid. Like, doesn't ask for the husband to come back.
Yeah, it's like, oh, I don't need him.
Like, I'd be like immediately like, okay, let's work on your power. You got to bring back my husband, who I love,
Yeah.
But they just like, oh, they're just casualties of this story. That's what didn't work the most for me is once we understood what was happening, why couldn't it have just been the ending of like, he overcomes it and all those people who were eaten are now back? You could have made it work in a way, but instead I'm just left with a sour taste in my mouth because it's like, I don't like the mom character. Like, I'm glad she got over the trauma of the child, but the dad just ends up becoming this like sacrifice that she indirectly gets him killed because she drugs the kid, to put him to sleep. It's like, I don't know. Just made it a little irredeemable for me. Yeah, I think this is probably the most, for me, mixed bag of his movies. Because I don't hate it, and there's still a lot of good stuff in there. That's what makes it so frustrating is that I wish it was better because there's stuff I like in there. But at the end of the day, it was just, it was just fine.
Yeah, some good stuff, some bad. Just a mixed bag. That's the best way to put it.
At the end of the day, it has Jacob Tremblay, so it's good.
Yeah. Has he been in anything since he went through puberty?
He was in Good Boys. Did you ever see that?
He was like 12, 10,
13. He was like just starting puberty.
Yeah, I saw that in theaters. Ugh.
Oh, you saw Good Boy in theaters?
Mm-hmm.
I don't really remember much of the movie, but the highway scene was pretty good.
Yeah, I think that was in the Movie Pass era, which is why I saw it.
Oh, nice. Yeah, 2018. Yeah, that highway scene is when I decided I'm not having kids. Because it's just like, if that happened, I'd be so mad.
Yeah, kids in restaurants made me not want to have kids, or grocery stores,
Just
or movie theaters.
Just experiencing kids in public
Just
in general.
experiencing kids in public.